All right, folks seem ready to go, so I'll stop talking and turn it over to Elena.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. This is our Bonner Community Fellows presentation, and thank you for sticking with us if you've been with us since this morning. So my name is Elena Vasquez. I'm the Community Partnership Manager. I work closely with Ashley and Nadia and our Vistas, Alex, Alexis, and Carissa. So what we will be doing today is reviewing various elements of the Bonner program with a focus on some of the questions we get frequently from Bonner partners. Any resources that we will share today will also be shared at the end of the orientation in our follow-up email. And remember that we have the partner handbook, and there's very specific information in there that we won't specifically be reviewing today. So as if you were with us this morning, I'm just going to briefly give you some updates. So as a reminder, all engagement will be virtual. There is a 3-semester model. So our 3 semesters are September to November, January to April, and May to August. So in the fall semester, we will have our sophomores, our juniors, and our seniors. In the spring, our first years will join us. Some of our sophomores will stay on campus, and our juniors and our seniors will also be enrolled. And then in the summer, we will only have our first years and the second portion of our sophomore students. So our agenda for the next 30 minutes, we'll try to cover a lot of information. So we'll go over everything about the Bonner program. So what is the Bonner program? How does it function? Who are the Bonners? How are they selected? We'll review the matching process, the developmental model, orientation and training, the program timeline, and we'll briefly go through the position description and how to approve hours. So what is the Bonner Community Fellows Program? So the Bonner Community Fellows Program, as shown in the screen, is a program that matches undergraduate students with our partner organizations. The takeaway is that it's an intense commitment because it's traditionally 6 to 8 hours of engagement with a partner, and it's for 4 years. So students start their freshman year and they stick with the partner until they graduate in their senior year. And what they're doing is going from direct service in their first year and building capacity for the organization. And so their work is really changing and evolving as they get older and they have more time with the organization. We know that we're in a virtual world, and so this strategy and the structure may have to change a little, and so we are here to discuss those options with you to make sure that the student is able to provide the work that the organization needs most. So if obviously we're not in person, and so if direct service isn't going to work, then we can discuss what projects they can be working on with you all. So these are some examples of capacity building projects that students have done in the past. So they can help manage your volunteers. They can do some resource development. They can do some research or assessment for the organization, or they can help with training and program development. And so ideally, you as the partner would have Bonners every year. I know in some cases, organizations don't have the capacity to have new Bonners every year. And again, these are ongoing conversations between you all and us, the community partnership team. So if you are concerned about your organization's capacity this year and hosting Bonners, please let us know individually or after this session. So how does the Bonner Community Fellows Program function? And for our new partners, we'll review all the information you need to know. For our current partners, this will be a review. So essentially we have the Swearer Center, and the Swearer Center partners up with a partner organization like yourselves, and then together we match Bonner Community Fellows. And so this is just a visual depiction of what the partnership looks like. So what we're going to do next is just review everyone's responsibilities. So we'll start off with the Swearer Center. So the Swearer Center is responsible for the recruitment and the selection of the fellows, also of the matching process, of developing and delivering orientation. We also provide weekly learning and development sessions for the fellows throughout the year. And we provide academic and co-curricular advising to fellows. We assess performance and progress, and we provide support to partner organizations in maximizing effectiveness and impact in their engagement. And then as far as our partner organization responsibilities, so as you may remember, you applied to host Bonner Community Fellows back in the spring. And you were notified in the spring as well how many slots you were given. And then once you partner with us, then you need to develop and deliver orientation to fellows. And that looks, it can look very differently for different organizations. It can be a couple days of training, it can be a couple hours. The idea here is that you're all the experts in your fields, and so you will be providing the Bonner Fellows with specific content on the individuals you're working with and what they need to know. And then also you develop and deliver, oh, I just said that, content issue areas, and then you're developing developmentally appropriate roles for them. So as I mentioned earlier, their roles are building up on all the work that they do from the previous year. And then you also designate a site supervisor, and that can be the person that the community partnership team is always in contact with, or it can be different individuals, as long as we know who that is, and we can direct the students to that person. And then the partner is also responsible for verifying the hours in Brown Engage, and we'll review that shortly on how to approve that. And evaluating student performance. So throughout the year, the community partnership team does send an early warning survey, usually in the fall, to just see how the partners are doing with the students, if there's any issues. And then Nadia and I are always checking in during the semesters to make sure everything's going okay. And if it's not, we assist with troubleshooting and figuring out the problem. So Bonner Community Fellows responsibilities. So they also apply to the Bonner program, and then they need to participate in a Bonner orientation. And so we're actually finalizing preseason, which is a Bonner orientation as we speak. It's looking like it's going to take place on September 7th and 8th. So on Labor Day and on Election Day. Our student staffers who were hired for the summer are finalizing that. But as it's looking right now, it's 2 full days of a lot of icebreakers to build a strong community among all the Bonners. And we're also going to have community partner perspectives and a panel. So we will be reaching out, if we haven't already, to some of you to see if you want to participate in that. And Bonners will also be learning more about the Providence community and hearing from some of our Swearer Center staff. So as a reminder, if you did apply for a Bonner for the class of 2024, which are the new freshmen, they will be starting sometime in February. is our plan, but as you all know, with this pandemic, things are always changing. And so it is our goal to make sure we keep you in the loop of any major changes. Bonners also participate in weekly workshops, and some of those workshops reinforce the expectations of Bonners through the program and lay the grounding for their understanding of the Providence community, and they explore the relationships between their personal identities and the community-based work that they're doing. Also, Bonners are expected to do 6 to 8 hours of engagement at your organizations. Again, because of it's virtual, as Ashley mentioned in our opening session, it may be that you do not have the capacity to provide 6 to 8 hours of work, and that is totally okay, as long as we know and we are in constant communication, and you designate it in your position description, that is okay. And also, Bonner Community Fellows are expected to log their hours in Brown Engage and reflect. So who are Bonner Community Fellows? Bonners are a cohort of 25 to 28 students for each incoming class. This year, I believe that number is a little bit lower. In the past, we've taken about 30 or 40 students. And so all students declare their intent to matriculate in May, on May 1st. And so that is when the Swear Center begins targeted outreach to students who demonstrated that they have an interest for community engagement. And 75% of our incoming class have demonstrated financial need, and they receive the $2,000 stipend, which they receive half in the first semester and half in the second semester. And depending on the year, sometimes we have students who do join the Bonner cohort, not as freshmen, but during the year as sophomores or juniors. So I'll pause there in case I can't see if anyone raised their hand or put a question in the chat. Ashley or Nadia, are we okay? Does anyone have any questions so far?
We're all right in the chat, and I'm not seeing any hands raised in the windows.
Perfect.
Just a quick question. If we did apply for a Bonner Scholar, would we be required to get an incoming freshman, which would mean starting in February if we're new to it, or would we have the option to try and find an upperclassman to start now, like in September?
Thank you, Kim, for your question. So the Bonner process starts in the spring, and so if usually you apply in April, you submit your application if you're interested in receiving a Bonner for the upcoming academic year. So if you didn't apply in the spring, you will not be receiving a new Bonner this upcoming spring. However, if your organization already has a Bonner, you will continue working with those Bonners. If you're interested in getting a freshman for next academic year, meaning 21-22, then you would fill out an application next spring of 2021.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem.
May I offer some additional, thank you, Elena, because I was actually just answering a similar question in the chat. So everything that Elena says, 100% accurate. And some of you know this because maybe you've been in this situation with us, but occasionally, for a variety of reasons, sometimes we have Bonners who are not first years, either coming in new to the program or who are being sort of rematched with a different organization than their initial match. This tends to be a very, very limited number each year. So, you know, I say this, but somewhat reservedly because I don't want to get anybody's hopes up. But if you are imagining a very, particular role that you'd want to take someone in on, and you think it fits within this Bonner model, that it would be developmental, I think we'd be happy to have a conversation about the potential of, you know, a non-freshman Bonner and a rematch, but we couldn't give anything close to a guarantee that that would work out for this or any cycle, given the sort of very small number of those students each year that we tend to be working with. The more standard process is the, you know, applying in the spring and taking, as Elena said, like a new Bonner, a brand new, you know, hot off the presses, incoming first year baby Bonner, and then they sort of grow up with you.
Great.
But happy to talk offline more about the, you know, a more senior Bonner and that small number rematching possibility.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. If there's no other questions, we'll proceed. So how are Bonner Community Fellows selected? So before we go into specifics, just wanted to share a little bit of information on Bonners. So about 50% of our Bonners are from historically underrepresented identities, and 35% are male and 65% are female. Okay, so the process for Bonners are that just like you as community partners apply, students have to apply. So they applied to the Bonner program, and then their responses are assessed according to a rubric created by us, well, by the SWER Center, not by me personally. Then candidates are interviewed by a committee, and the committee is made up of Bonner Community Fellows, members of the Student Development Team, and by members of the Community Partnership Team. So that could be myself and Nadia, Student Development Team, if you've worked with Josh or Betsy or Sage before, and then candidates are notified. So currently we are in the process of finalizing the interviews and figuring out who we're going to notify that got admitted into the class. So how do we match organizations and fellows? So this process that I'm about to review has been the process historically. Again, because of all the changes that are happening, we are thinking that this will remain the process, but we will again communicate any changes to you as soon as possible. So students receive the position description that the organization submitted. And so you submitted this position description back in the spring with your application. And for those who are looking to apply for a Bonner, it would be what you would submit with your application next year. The students then indicate an interest in the different positions as part of their application process. And then during the Bonner orientation, partners have had the opportunity to speak to fellows about the organizations and roles. So in the past, we've had, I believe, a day or two where partners talk about their organization with students before you actually interview them. That may, again, look very similar, or it might change this upcoming year. And then fellows rank the interest in the organizations, and then SWER staff match organizations with fellows during the match day interview process. And then both the organization and the students rank each other. And then SWER staff have the fun part of it where we try to match everyone and give partners and students their top 1, 2, or 3. Sometimes it does not work out perfectly, and so when that's the case, we are always in constant communication to make sure that it still will work for both the partner and the student. Nope, sorry. Okay, so what's up next is the Bonner Developmental Model, Orientation and Training, timeline, a review of the description, the position description, and approval of hours. Okay, so this information is basically the Bonner Developmental Model. As we've said, the framework is that the student is increasing capacity every year that they work with you, and that the more bonners you have, or even if you have one or two, they're serving as force multipliers. So they're really helping you amplify the effort to produce more output or more work for your organization. And that they're supporting the education, and that you're supporting the education and development of your Bonner Fellows. So earlier I mentioned the 5 E's, and basically it's what we've been talking about, how the 5 E's are expectation, exploration, experience, example, and expertise. And so the idea, as we've been talking about, is that they are exploring by doing direct service and in the community, and then they're picking up other coordinator roles or projects or programs that still include them volunteering their time, but they're doing more coordination, and that's the experience portion of this. And then they're growing into developmental roles or leadership roles by helping you manage the volunteers, or manage your social media and communications platform, or they're helping you fundraise or help set up the strategy for that. And then they in a way, it's the expertise stage, where they're either doing a capstone project, they're researching, they're doing advocacy. And again, this is just what the model looks like, but this can be adapted to your specific organization. We don't expect every Bonner at every organization to be working on the same project. Okay, so let's expand on this. So I'm about to share an example of a position description of the 4-year progression of a Bonner. Keep in mind that this is the old position description, as we have not updated this to reflect the new one. So before we go into the position description, Ashley had shared this earlier in the opening session as well, but these are just different topics that Bonners can be helping you with. Now, especially that we're in a virtual world, they can, as I mentioned, be helping you with fundraising or coordinating, managing programs. The part in yellow is just, it seems like it's what most organizations do, but it's not the only thing. So they can be helping you write grants or searching for grants. They can be helping you with your website development or social media development. They can be assisting you with writing issue briefs related to policy, or they can be researching evidence-based practices and models. Or they can just be helping you manage other students or meeting logistical support. Whatever your needs are, these are just some examples of what organizations have done in the past. So as some of you who are current partners may recall, this is a position description sample from last year. Ashley did share the updated one this morning, but it will look very similar. And so you'll have your organization's name, the issue area, who's the supervisor and their title, the position title for the Bonner position, expected hours, and again, expected is 6 to 8, but this year in the semester, it can be whatever you think you have the capacity, whether that's 6 hours or 5 hours. Just talk to us and we'll make it work. Their expected schedule, keep in mind most students are virtual, and so it may be that their schedule may be a little bit more flexible, so just stay in touch with the student and to see what will work. So what I want to highlight here is that, oh, you can't see where I'm pointing, where it says 4-year developmental plan. So here it's broken down by year 1, year 2, and the next page I'll show year 3 and 4. So you are basically breaking down what the work of the Bonner is, or what you imagine it to be. And this is a continuous document. And so whatever you put on here is just a plan. If your needs do change, then this can be updated to reflect your changes. So just every year you put what you think they'll be able to do.
Elena, I apologize for interrupting. This is Ashley. I just want to identify that we're coming up on time.
Okay.
And so there are a few more things in this slideshow. And I'm also noting that I think the grave majority of folks who are here with us were also here for the earlier sessions. So the parts of this presentation remaining are talking about things like onboarding, which we talked about with Community Core, and about doing things like approving hours, which we talked about with Community Core. So I'm just putting this out there as a suggestion that I think we're at 11:50 now, so we'll go over anyway, but how do folks feel, Elena, you in particular, about maybe transitioning to Q&A?
Yeah.
At this juncture, and let's do that for a few minutes before we shift to our Vista presentation. And please know you'll have this presentation, you know, Elena's flipping through it right now, so you can see we talk about a timeline a little bit, but we've talked about that, and it talks about approving hours. So it's stuff you've seen if you were in the previous session. We'll follow this up, and then Nadia and Elena are doing that individualized follow-up. Is that okay with folks? We want to make sure we're answering we're giving ample time to answer your questions. I'm seeing some thumbs up and
Oh,
no
you cannot speak.
most importantly. So does anyone have any questions? Charles, did I hear you just now?
I guess I have to go to the shop.
Okay, seeing thumbs up. So any questions about the Bonner program going forward? At least into this next academic year. Hopefully we return to some normalcy after that.
I have a question, if it's okay.
Yes.
I have a 4th year Bonner student. It's her senior year, and she'll be doing her capstone project. Is there anything to note about this year that would be different than for first, second, or third years in terms of like expectation, or what the end of the year looks like for them, if there's a presentation, or if it's up to the individual to just coordinate with the organizations?
Thank you so much for that question, Shana. I'll offer a response, and Elena, if you want to jump in. So one of the sort of cornerstone requirements of the Bonner program is that their 4th year students complete a capstone project, and that is sort of a project that culminates what they've sort of done and learned with their organization. So I think, I mean, just the fact that that exists is the main difference. That they should be having a discussion with you about how they intend to capture and sort of present on that work, and maybe leaning into a little bit more for sort of your guidance and feedback around that, right, as you've been on the journey with them. That will, as you say, look different depending on the student and organization, what the work has looked like. But so we would just ask for sort of an openness to, you know, be a part of that process with them. Historically, we have done small sessions where there are presentations of learning that we ask our senior Bonner fellows to do, and partners are invited to participate and view what they present out. You know, I'm going to tell you as I sit here, we don't know right now what that's going to look like.
Right.
You know, I think we're going to preserve that if possible virtually, if we're still in the situation that we're in come the spring, when you know, we're closer to graduation for the seniors. But we don't have a finalized plan for that at the moment. I really appreciate the question though, and I will definitely integrate that into our follow-up messaging to make sure we're updating you on what is to become of that.
Okay, great.
Very likely the capstone requirement will still be there, but sort of how it is presented is what we'll need to figure out.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions? Okay, so I'll just end it with Nadia and I have been reaching out and will continue reaching out to set up meetings with everyone individually. We will be sharing the position template and the memorandum of understanding. Our goal is to have those signed before the school year starts, and students, as a reminder, will be going through orientation in September. So I don't know, Ashley, if there's anything in the chat. I cannot see it, but if not, I will. Do you want to give them a break, or you want to jump into the Vista?
So there is nothing in the chat at the moment, but please feel free as we go, if something comes up, to shoot a chat either to everyone or to any of us directly. And I would put that question to the group. How do folks feel about a 2-minute stretch break? And then Nadia will lean in with the Vista presentation